banks by the end of April in order to squeeze in as much time as possible up north before his return. During those 4 weeks in Carthage, McCandless worked hard, doing dirty, tedious jobs that nobody else wanted to tackle, mucking out warehouses, exterminating vermin, painting, scything weeds. At one point, to reward McCandless with a task that involved slightly more skill, Westerberg attempted to teach him to operate a front-end loader. Alex hadn't been around machinery much, Westerberg says with a shake of his head, and it was pretty comical to watch him try to get the hang of the clutch and all those levers. He definitely wasn't what you'd call mechanically minded. Nor was McCandless endowed with a surfeit of common sense. Many who knew him have commented, unbidden, that he seemed to have great difficulties seeing the trees, as it were, for the forest. Alex wasn't a total space cadet or anything, says Westerberg, don't get me wrong, but there was gaps in his thinking. I remember once I went over to the house, walked into the kitchen, and noticed a god-awful stink. I mean, it smelled nasty in there. I opened the microwave, and the bottom of it was filled with rancid grease. Alex had been using it to cook chicken, and it never occurred to him that the grease had to drain somewhere. It wasn't that he was too lazy to clean it up. Alex always kept things real neat and orderly. It was just that he hadn't noticed the grease. Soon after McCandless returned to Carthage that spring, Westerberg introduced him to his longtime on-again, off-again girlfriend, Gail Bora, a petite, sad-eyed woman, as slight as a heron, with delicate features and long blonde hair. 35 years old, divorced, a mother of 2 teenage children, she quickly became close to McCandless. He was kind of shy at first, says Bora. He acted like it was hard for him to be around people. I just figured that was because he'd spent so much time by himself. I had Alex over to the house for supper just about every night, Bora continues. He was a big eater, never left any food on his plate, never. He was a good cook, too. Sometimes he'd have me over to Wayne's place and fix supper for everybody. Cooked a lot of rice. You'd think he would get tired of it, but he never did. Said he could live for a month on nothing but 25 pounds of rice. Alex talked a lot when we got together, Bora recalls. Serious stuff, like he was bearing his soul, kind of. He said he could tell me things that he couldn't tell the others. You could see something was gnawing at him. It was pretty obvious he didn't get along with his family, but he never said much about any of them except Corinne, his little sister. He said they were pretty close. Said she was beautiful, that when she walked down the street, guys would turn their heads and stare. Westerberg, for his part, didn't concern himself with McCandless's family problems. Whatever reason he had for being pissed off, I figured it must have been a good one. Now that he's dead, though, I don't know anymore. If Alex was here right now, I'd be tempted to chew him out good. What the hell were you thinking? Not speaking to your family for all that time? Treating them like dirt? One of the kids that works for me, he don't even have any goddamn parents. But you don't hear him bitching. Whatever the deal was with Alex's family, I guarantee you I've seen a lot worse. Knowing Alex, I think he must have just got stuck on something that happened between him and his dad and couldn't leave it be. Westerberg's latter conjecture, as it turned out, was a fairly astute analysis of the relationship between Chris and Walt McCandless. Both father and son were stubborn and high-strung. Given Walt's need to exert control and Chris's extravagantly independent nature, polarization was inevitable. Chris submitted to Walt's authority through high school and college to a surprising degree, but the boy raged inwardly all the while. He brooded at length over what he perceived to be his father's moral shortcomings, the hypocrisy of his parents' lifestyle, the tyranny of their conditional love. Eventually, Chris rebelled, and when he finally did, it was with characteristic immoderation. Shortly before he disappeared, Chris complained to Corinne that their parents' behavior was so irrational, so oppressive, disrespectful, and insulting that I finally passed my breaking point. He went on. Since they won't ever take me seriously, for a few months after graduation, I'm going to let them think they are right. I'm going to let them think that I'm coming around to see their side of things, and that our relationship is stabilizing. And then, once the time is right, with one abrupt, swift action, I'm going to completely knock them out of my life. I'm going to divorce them as my parents once and for all and never speak to either of those idiots again as long as I live. I'll be through with them once and for all, forever. The chill Westerberg sensed between Alex and his parents stood in marked contrast to the warmth McCandless exhibited in Carthage. Outgoing and extremely personable when the spirit moved him, he charmed a lot of folks. There was mail waiting for him when he arrived back in South Dakota, correspondence from people he'd met on the road, including what Westerberg remembers as letters from a girl who had a big crush on him, someone he'd gotten to know in some Timbuktu, some campground, I think. But McCandless never mentioned any romantic entanglements to either Westerberg or Bora. I don't recollect Alex ever talking about any girlfriends, says Westerberg, although a couple of times he mentioned wanting to get married and have a family someday. You could tell he didn't take relationships lightly. He wasn't the kind of guy who would go out and pick up girls just to get laid. It was clear to Bora, too, that McCandless hadn't spent much time cruising singles bars. One night, a bunch of us went out to a bar over in Madison, says Bora, and it was hard to get him out on the dance floor. But once he was out there, he wouldn't sit down. We had a blast. After Alex died and all, Corrine told me that as far as she knew, I was one of the only girls he ever went dancing with.